Yo my people, we're back again for another video. Today we're going to be doing my 22-23 Premier League predictions, and this season is going to be by far the most toughest season to predict in Premier League history since I've been watching the Prem. In my opinion, it's going to be so difficult, so much competition, new arrivals, the big departures and that as well, players going from club to club of course and that as well, Premier League wise and that. So yeah, it's going to be a real intense and hard season for a lot of teams, I think. So yeah, I've managed to predict where the teams are going to finish in the Premier League table, of course 20 teams in that. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting, it's going to be really intense, and I cannot wait. It all kicks off on Friday night. Starting off, finishing rock bottom of the Premier League is AFC Bournemouth. Haven't done much business, haven't really got many Premier League quality players in my opinion. The players that they have is the ability of Championship players in my opinion, you know, not Premiership quality to be fair. They haven't really got a prolific goal scorer. I think they're going to be relying too much on the likes of Dominic Solanke. I'm really not convinced with their manager Scott Parker either. I mean, he's already been relegated twice with Fulham. I don't think he's a Premiership manager, and yeah, I just don't think they financially and just like, you know, the size of that club and the players they got, I don't think they're going to do enough to compete with the other Premiership clubs that are going to be battling relegation with, and with also within the league as well. So it's going to be a very hard, long season for Bournemouth. Now in 19th place, this may, you know, be a shock to a lot of people, Leeds United. Now obviously they sold the likes of Calvin Phillips and Rafinha, two of their top players from last season. They did manage to keep hold of Patrick Bamford, but he is always injured. This summer they've brought in quite a few players in that as well. Now I think overall in the past few years you've seen clubs like Everton and Fulham splash out a load of money signing players, and it nearly got them relegated. Some teams such as Fulham did get relegated, and that, do you know what I mean? So yeah, I mean that's never usually the best sign. It shows it's just a little not really desperate, but you're just signing players for the sake of it. And it takes time for players, you know, a big group of players to really gel on that. And I think Leeds United are gonna, you know, struggle with that this season. Too many individuals potentially, and I don't think they'll be able to bond as a team very well. And that Jesse Marsch, for me, he hasn't really had that full intense season as a Premier League manager. He only came in like in March, which is just midway through the second half of last season and that. So I think if the pressure really hits to him, I don't think he'll be able to cope and deliver as a manager. And I'm not sure if he's got it in him to, you know, survive a full season as the Leeds manager. You know, once the pressure mounts towards him, it's going to be very hard for him to turn it around. Defensively, they concede way too many goals in my opinion, and I think that's going to change. And Rafinha gone, I mean, I think they've lost that goal threat up front. They've got Bamford, but he's always injured half the time. He was injured like about 2 to 3 times last season, for God's sake. So yeah, I mean, I'm not really convinced with Leeds this season. Last team in the bottom 3, 18th, is Everton. Obviously, they sold their star man last season, Richarlison. It was brilliant for them last season. If it wasn't for him, they wouldn't have stayed in the Premier League, in my opinion, with his goals. Sold him to Tottenham for £60 million, a bit of a price there, but yeah, they needed the money because financially they were in the pretty much. So yeah, they've made some poor signings in the likes of Dwight McNeil and Tarkowski, both from relegated Burnley. Yeah, a bit of a downgrade in my opinion from players that they've previously signed in the past and that as well. It's got relegation sort of like written all over them in my opinion. The overall issue is they haven't really made that big wow splendid summer signing. They, you know, with the money they got for Richarlison plus a bit of the money which Jonas had, that they needed a striker in my opinion. I don't think Calvert-Lewin is that sort of striker to, you know, carry them up that table and that, you know what I'm saying? I mean, he's always injured half the time as well. He's a bit like Patrick Bamford. So yeah, they needed another striker and they haven't really got that. And yeah, it's not looking good for Everton. I mean, I don't think Lampard is the best manager for the job. I think he'll be the first manager to potentially be sacked. You know, I think he's pretty clueless in my opinion. They haven't really had the best pre-season either, Everton, you know. So yeah, Everton's future is looking bleaker and bleaker, and they haven't really strengthened the squad, you know, as much as I thought they would, you know, on the back of that bad season they had last time and that, you know, almost getting relegated. So Everton are going to be in a bit of trouble this season. 17th place, I've gone with Fulham. Yes, I think they will just about scrape relegation. Honestly, the amount of times this team have been battling relegation, I mean the last 2 seasons for God's sake, which they've been in the Prem after automatic promotion from the playoffs and that, they've gone straight back down again, you know. And I think this will be the season where they really need to realise they got to stay up, they got to try and keep afloat in the Premier League, and that they can't afford to get relegated again. It'd just be a real disappointment for them, you know. They need to learn from their mistakes and that. As a club, you know, I think They need to, carry on strengthening the squad. They've signed some real good players such as Mabu, Andres Pereira, and Joel Paolini. It's looking decent for Fulham. They've signed some quality players to strengthen that team, especially with the big step from being in the Championship to the Premier League. So I'm really impressed with that. They seem like they're improving their team and that. They've got Mitrovic, which I think they'll be relying on to get the goals for them. He's going to probably get 10, not 43. Got 43 last season, broke the Championship goal scoring records and that. So yeah, who knows how many goals the Serbian will get for them and that. Their main number 9, of course, and that as well. The kind of signings that they signed as well, Premiership standard, like I said. So I think that's a positive for Fulham. In 16th spot, I've got with Nottingham Forest. Steve Cooper has done an absolute magnificent job within the last year. Well, not even that, less than a year. He came in, Nottingham Forest were rock bottom of the Championship, but he got them from that to being promoted, I should say, through the playoffs and that. So yeah, massive credits to him and that. Last season, I mean, they looked dead and buried, and then he rose them up into the playoffs, and they won the playoffs, and they're in the Premier League now. So yeah, I mean, they don't concede many goals, however that will change. It's the Premier League, and the oppositions that they're going to be coming up against will probably score a few goals past them, such as the likes of Man City and all of that, all the big teams in that. So yeah, it's going to be a hard season for Forest and that. However, they have signed 13 new first team players, I should say, so they've almost signed a second team, to be fair. So yeah, they're not messing around, Nottingham Forest. The 3 key signings, I think, which will be vital for Nottingham Forest staying in the Premier League with the experience, is Nico Williams from Liverpool, the right back. Goalkeeper Dean Henderson on loan from Man United, set to be their first choice goalkeeper due to the departure of Samba, and obviously Jesse Lingard on a free transfer, who'll be given 200k a week in wages. So yeah, 3 players there, 3 crucial players that might just do enough to keep them in the Premier League, get a few other key signings as well. So yeah, it's not going to be easy for Forest, but I think they'll just about have enough to stay up. The club that size should really be in the Premier League, to be fair. They're a big club and they've got a lot of history and they've got a big point to prove. In 15th place, I'm going to go with Southampton. Now, on the back end of last season, they only won 1 out of their last 12 games. They had a horrendous end to last season, and that a lot of fans were calling for Ralph Hasenhüttl's head. Yeah, they wanted to get the sack, so it wasn't looking good at Southampton. However, they have signed some promising youngsters and that this season. They spent a bit of money, but I don't think it's going to be enough, in my opinion. I think they're really inconsistent last season. They're probably going to have a similar season this season, to be fair. And I think Southampton fans will eventually get irritated and they'll be wanting the manager to go, and he probably will get sacked. 14th place, I'm going to go with Brentford. Now, I think they're going to have a similar season to what they had last season, but when they came up, a lot of people had them to get relegated, but they proved a lot of people wrong, getting big results, scored a lot of goals, and yeah, kept them in the Premier League, and they weren't really in relegation trouble and that, to be fair. So yeah, they did pretty well, to be fair. I mean, this season, in my opinion, I think the Bees are gonna try and step their game up, but it will be a lot harder. Every season does get harder, and that, especially for the likes of Brentford to compete in that. They've got a lot of good goal scorers throughout, and that, Burmo, Ivan Toney, Canos, Whistler as well, who had a very good season last season, hitting double figures and that with goals and that, So yeah, I mean, they have obviously signed a winger, was it Keane Lewis Potter, for £17 million. So yeah, it's a good signing for them. He's very promising. He got about 13 goals for Hull City last season. So yeah, he's looking a real good instalment for Brentford. Thomas Frank has done a magnificent job. 13th place, Wolverhampton Wanderers. That probably will surprise a few people, because a lot of Wolves fans are probably going to be like, no, we should be going for Europe. Well, the reason why I've got you lot 13th Wolves is because at the back of last season you had a horrendous, hideous end, and yeah, I'll be honest with you, it wasn't looking good. You were leaking too many goals, you weren't scoring too many goals. When you do that bad, it usually follows into the following season, and I just have a feeling they're going to have another, like, a really mediocre season, the kind of season they had a couple of years ago, and that during lockdown and that, Again, they haven't really signed a player that really stands out. They've got over £300 million to spend as a club, and they haven't really done well with that money, and I expect them to do a lot better. Even the Wolves fans would probably be disappointed as well. They rely too much on Jimenez, and manager Bruno Lage, I think, will probably get the sack, and Wolves are just going to have another frustrating season and that as well. If I was a Wolves supporter, I'd be pretty peed off, and I'd be losing my patience, to be fair, with the way that the club is being run at the moment. In 12th place, I've gone with Brighton and Hove Albion, the seaweed, the scum, you name it. Obviously, Basuma's gone to Tottenham for around 35 mil. And Cucurella has put in the transfer request to leave Brighton, so I don't think he's going to ever really be playing for them again. And Man City obviously are being the favourites to sign him. Overall, I do think they're just about doing enough to, stay afloat in mid-table in the Premier League without hitting any relegation troubles and that. Graham Potter's a good manager, and he knows the experience and the levels of the Premiership, and he knows that Brighton team are just can't afford to really be in a relegation battle. I'll make sure of it, to be fair. So yeah, it's just going to be another average season for Brighton in the mid-table, to be fair. Obviously last season they did well, have some purple patches, have some good spells. That's just Brighton for you, isn't it? A bit like Palace, a bit like any other team in the mid-table. 11th place, this will shock a few people. Again, I'm going to go with Aston Villa. Now the reason why I think they're going to miss out on the top 10 is because they're going to try and focus on the League Cup and the FA Cup. Steven Gerrard did come out a few days ago and say he wants to try and focus on winning a bit of silverware in that, for the club. I think that is their biggest aim. They haven't won a trophy for ages. They haven't even finished in the top 10 for over a decade. In my opinion, I think they're going to focus on the cups and that, they're going to try and do well with the team they got. I mean, look, they've had a decent window. They've signed Coutinho on a permanent deal. Diego Carlos, they've signed him for £27 million as well. From Sevilla, the link-up play between him and Douglas Luiz and Coutinho, the Brazilian link-up will be pretty good for Aston Villa. Last season, they had an issue with consistency, and that's why they failed to get top 10 and they finished 14th. So it was a bit of a disappointing season for Aston Villa. They've got good players such as Danny Ings and Ollie Watkins who can get the goals for them, and that's going to be a weird season for Aston Villa, but I think it's either going to be good or it's either going to be a complete disaster. You never really know what you're going to get with it. I think there'll be a lot more tighter at the back as well, because last season they were leaking goals and that. 10th place, I'll go with my boys, Crystal Palace. Now, this is going to be an interesting season. Patrick Vieira's second season is going to be a mad one, hopefully. I really hope we do well. I really hope we push to finish as high in the league as we can. I want to try and aim for top 10, possibly even the Conference League, and I'll get to that in a minute. Now, obviously, we need to learn from our mistakes of last season. We drew too many games, dropped too many points, conceded too many late goals, set pieces as well. We would concede too many set pieces, and it's not good enough for a Premiership side. And one thing I'm really happy we've done, we got our business done early, signing key players at key positions that we need to strengthen. Obviously we signed Sam Johnson, goalkeeper from West Bromwich Albion, on a free. Central defensive mid, Czech Takuri from Lens for around 18 to 20 million pounds. Right winger Malcolm Ebiobi from Derby, and of course Chris Richards from Bayern Munich as well. Who plays centre back, right back, and left back. So that's the kind of players that I want to sort of be seeing as bringing in young players, players that are hungry and ready to give it a go this season in the Premiership. So yeah, really pleased. Plus with more signings to come, such as Loftus-Cheek, who potentially could be on his way to sell us, and who knows, maybe a few other players as well. A pretty hard start in my opinion. Arsenal at home, Liverpool, Man City, and that both away, and a few other difficult games as well. It's going to be hard for us to sort of compete with them teams in my opinion. We may get a good result, we may not. But yeah, Patrick Vieira, I really hope he delivers, and I really hope he pushes us in finishing in the top 10 or even higher in the Conference League. If we just buck our ideas up and get the results we need, we could potentially finish in a Conference League spot, potentially, hopefully. So yeah, but I think we're going to finish 10th realistically. We have to this season. We ain't even finished in the top 10 for over 7 years, so come on, Palace. 9th place, I'm going to go with Leicester City. Now, with stars such as Fofana, Tillemans and Maddison, some star players for them. All their futures looking in doubt, and that pretty highly. It's not really looking good for Leicester. They haven't signed anyone this summer. They've had a poor window. The board haven't really done as well as I thought they would. They're usually signing players after players, really good quality ones, but they haven't really been doing that this season. They've been, pretty poor and pretty smack average in my opinion. Jamie Vardy, I don't think in my opinion will be the same player as he has been in recent seasons. In fact, he's past it. Yeah, if they want to push to try and get Europe, they've got to strengthen the squad, and they haven't really been doing that. So I think Leicester fans are going to lose their patience with Rodgers. I mean, they wanted him out last season, a few of them as well. They weren't happy with their performances and that. I think this season could be a similar season, but maybe a little worse. Fans will lose their patience, and yeah, I got a feeling that things may get quite stale at Leicester City. 8th place, I've gone with West Ham United. Now, the reason why I think they're going to finish 8th, and the biggest downfall for them missing out on Europe, Conference League spot, Europa League spot, etc., maybe even the Champions League as well, if you know what I'm on about, will be the Conference League. I think they're going to really give that a go. They want to win a European trophy. They haven't won some silverware in ages, to be fair, so they're going to be really focusing on that. They've brought in a few players for that, including striker Skamaka from US Sazalo for £32 million. I think I said that right. Yeah, so yeah, they've They brought him in. They got a striker for once, because obviously last season they were relying a lot on Antonio to get them in goals and that. He got 16 goals. Scamacca got 16 goals for Sassuolo last season in Serie A in 36 games. So he's proven he could do it there. Can he do it in the Prem? I'm not really sure. It's a different level, the Premier League, and the intensity of it. It can get to some players and they just don't perform well. So we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I think the downfall and then will just be the Conference League. It'll just be too many games, and I think the fitness of the West Ham team and that will show. They've got goal scorers, all round, such as Bowen, Antonio, Ben Rama and Lanzini. These are really up their game. I think there may be a few more signs to come, but right now I think they're just going to be focused on the Conference League. If they win that and they finish 8th, then it'll be fine for them. They'll be back in the Europa League. But if they fail, to win the Conference League, and if they finish 8th, will be a disappointing season for the Hammers. 7th place, Newcastle United, the richest club in the world, 420 billion. Now, last season in the second half, they were the only team, with the fewest amount of defeats in the second half of last season, and that, in the bottom half of the table. If it wasn't for the takeover, they would have been relegated months ago. Nick Pope and Steve Botman from Lille for £33 million, more decent signs to come. And one thing I like what Newcastle are doing, they're taking it slow. They're not splashing the cash, signing 1 player, 2 players, 3 players in the space of like a week and that, and then doing the same the following week. They're taking it slow, and they're signing players that are proven and that they think are good enough for Newcastle United. So I'm impressed with that. I thought they'd be splashing the cash for fun, but they're taking it pretty seriously. So credit to Newcastle United for that. Eddie Howe's done a brilliant job, an amazing job in that. So I think he's going to really, try his best to get Newcastle up that table. And if they finish 7th, they'll get Conference League. If they finish higher, maybe Europa League. In 6th place, I've gone with Manchester United. Now, obviously, Ten Hag has taken over the reign at Old Trafford. And it's been a bit of a 50-50 summer window for Man United. The whole Cristiano Ronaldo situation, is he staying or is he going? It's causing chaos at Man United, and it's just pretty unsettling at the club, to be fair. So it's not the best situation to be in for a club such as Manchester United. The failure of last season, they've had an abysmal campaign. It's just really irritating Ronaldo. Ten Hag hasn't signed as many players as he wanted to be at Man United. He signed the likes of Christian Eriksen. De Jong may still be coming along, but that's been going on for the last 2 months. He's still in the right, De Jong. So yeah, I don't know what's going on there. I'm a bit disappointed with Man United's window. I thought they'd do a bit more, to be fair, and they haven't. They still got the likes of Maguire, who obviously has been rumoured to be leaving as well. But Saka, who Ten Hag don't even want, he's still there. A few other players as well, and that. So yeah, it's kind of unsettling, and it's a bit mixed at Man U right now. It's going to take Ten Hag a couple seasons, possibly even more, for them to sort of get used to his ways, to his methods, for the Man United to sort of be rising to try and challenge for the top 4, or even potentially, challenging for the title or any silverware. They're miles off that. 5th place, the amount of hate I'll get for this will be unreal. 5th place, Chelsea. Now the reason why I've gone with Chelsea is a few reasons. They haven't really had a good pre-season. They have signed some good players, such as Sterling and Koulibaly, and I'll get onto that in a minute. They've got a few players such as Loftus-Cheek and Gallagher, first team players I'm talking about currently at Chelsea, are in the pre-season squad, and that you obviously either don't want to be there or just aren't really 100%. It's pretty obvious, to be fair, and it might be a bit unsettling for Chelsea in that as well. Now don't get me wrong, obviously the likes of Raheem Sterling is a really good sign. I think it's a huge loss for Man City, I'm going to get onto it in a minute. But Koulibaly, 31 years of age, is he Premiership proven? Not really. I don't think that's really the issue. He might take a while to sort of gel in the way Chelsea play and then be brilliant. Their problem is they haven't really got a striker. Now Tino Werner has been pretty poor for Chelsea in my opinion. He's not been the player they wanted him to be. He's obviously been linked with the likes of Newcastle to potentially sign him. Kai Havertz isn't really a striker. He's a cam and he's not a prolific goal scorer. And yeah, they haven't really got a striker. That is the downfall for Chelsea. Last season in games they couldn't finish teams off. This season they probably, if they don't get a striker, they're gonna have a similar outcome in my opinion. If they don't get a prolific striker, that's what I should really be saying, to be fair. The reason why I think they'll miss out on top 4 is because they're not gonna have anyone to get their goals, and that's gonna be the big issue for Chelsea. I think other teams have progressed and have risen above that, and Chelsea is just haven't got that striker, and that's the main problem. Now moving into the top 4, 4th place, I have gone with Arsenal, and the reason why I think they're going to finish 4th, Gabriel Jesus, really, £45 million for Man City, a brilliant deal. Pre-season, he's already got 7 goals, scored a hat-trick in the Emirates Cup in a 6-0 win against Sevilla the other day at the Emirates Stadium. So yeah, he's looking really good, and I think he's going to have a really good season. I think it's a good move for Jesus. He's going to link up well with the likes of Martinelli, his Brazilian teammate, and that as well. And yeah, he's going to really shine. Fabio Vieira, Alexander Zinchenko from Manchester City, £35 million. few good signings for Arsenal there if they want to progress and push and compete with the other teams in the top four, rather than signing mediocre players such as Ben White and Tavares and that. So yeah, they're really stepping up their game. Arsenal signing some good quality players, and Kroenke actually has given them the money, as Kelechi said. So yeah, it's looking pretty promising. It's looking like a real promising campaign for Arsenal. Overall, they can't really afford to make the same mistakes again, such as failing to get top four and failing to finish teams off. And they've got a striker, they can score the goals. There's not that Aubameyang issue. There's not, like I said, he's not a prolific goal scorer and pretty rubbish. They got Gabriel Jesus plus Nketiah. Seems like he's stepping up his game as well as a young player. So life at Arsenal's looking good in my opinion. I think they're going to be a really good outfit. And the reason why they're going to get top four over Chelsea is because they got a striker and Chelsea haven't. Finishing third place, it's going to be Tottenham Hotspur. Now, they've signed some real good quality players. Spence, Basuma, Richarlison for 60 mil, you name it. Ivan Perisic, I think, is going to have a really good season. Antonio Conte getting the players in that he needs, to challenge for the top four and to play in the Champions League. Of course, they're in the Champions League after beating Arsenal for fourth spot last season and that in the Premier League. So yeah, in my opinion, it's looking really good for Tottenham as well. Adding major depth within their squad, and obviously they've got the likes of Kane and Son. I think they'll be scoring goals for fun a lot of the time this season. They need to try and be more consistent. They need to get the results in the crucial games that really matter a bit more. I think they did that last season towards the end, but they need to have a good start to the season, hit the ground running and go flying off if they want to try and challenge for the title and do well in the Champions League and just stay in the top four as well, of course, depending on what happens for them this season. So yeah, I think Antonio Conte is going to make it very difficult for Tottenham to break down. He's going to make sure the defence is solid. He's really, motivated his Tottenham team to do well, and I think they're going to be a real challenge, to play against the season. Moving on to the top two of the Premier League. Second place, I'm going to go with Liverpool. Now, I just don't think they sort of have what it takes to sort of win the title across the whole season. I think last season they were a little bit inconsistent at times in a way, especially the first half, drawing too many games, losing silly games away from home. That cost them the title. They couldn't really finish off teams at times and that as well in the crucial games, to be fair. And they weren't really in the big games as well. Big players weren't really stepping up to the margin and that. So yeah, that's sort of what cost them the title, and it cost them the Champions League final as well. So that's what I'm on about with Liverpool. Obviously, they've signed Darwin Núñez for 100 million euros from Benfica, and he looks like a really good player. He scored 4 goals in the pre-season friendly against Leipzig, and then he came on and made a huge impact in the Community Shield final against Manchester City. Scored a brilliant header, and he looks like a really good outfit, a promising player. He's still young as well, so the future's looking bright for him at Liverpool, and I think he'll have a good season. Cause defence is mayhem. They kept hold of Mohamed Salah as well. Him extended his contract for a further 3 years till 2025. The big problem for me is they lost Sadio Mane to Bayern Munich. Big loss for them. They're going to miss his movement in getting the crucial goals at a crucial time, and his finishing was so good, and he was such a spark in that Liverpool team. I think they're going to be lacking that this season a little bit. They've got to be consistent, not drop as many points as they did last season or draw as many games. They need to go on a long winning run and need to hit the ground running at the beginning of the season. They need to win all their first 10 games, then I could say maybe they'll win the title. The team winning the Premier League and finishing first will be Manchester City. Now, the reason why I think they're going to win the Premier League again, it's going to be interesting because obviously they lost Sterling and Jesus, and Fernandinho has moved on as well on a free transfer, so they lost some key players in that. I think Pep wanted to sort of, just sign some fresh players, some new blood in the team, and they have done with Calvin Phillips from Leeds for 45 mil, Junior Alvarez as well, and Erling Haaland for £51 million, a bargain signing. He's going to really have a good season. He looked pretty sharp, he looked pretty on it, he looked like he was really up and wanted to give it a go. It's a new challenge for him as well, so it may take him a little bit of time, but I think he'll hit the ground running pretty quick. The difference between Man City and Liverpool is Man City can come out of difficult situations. If they're losing 2-0, they can come back and get 3 goals in about 5 minutes, or 2 goals in the space of a couple of minutes as well. They could just turn it around like that. They ruthlessly finish teams off. The likes of Kevin De Bruyne, very consistent. They know how to win titles. They always go on a good run. They never let it slip. They never look like slipping. They always got a few goals in them, and they always show what they're capable of. Manchester City have won 4 out of 5 Premier League titles in the last 5 seasons, so that's Man City. That's the difference between Liverpool and Man City, and that's why City are going to pick Liverpool for the title yet again. It's going to be a tough one. It's going to be a tight one, but yeah, City have got this one, and it's the way they play. In the Premier League, they know how to up their game, and they know they can't afford to drop any points. They ain't messing about. Man City, Liverpool, I don't know if they got that mentality. That's what I'll say. That's the difference between Man City and Liverpool, and that's why City are going to win the title. So yeah, my people, those are my Premier League predictions 22-23. I really hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know your predictions down in the comment section down below. Follow me on all my socials, link in the description down below for all of them as well. Make sure to like, share and subscribe, my people. It'll be a pleasure to hit 2k subs sooner rather than later. I'll see you in my next video in a bit, people. Hope you enjoy. Bye.